The stars had been watching Earth for 300 years, and they were not impressed. In the grand chamber of the Galactic Council, floating high above the crystal world of Nexus, the quarterly reports scrolled across holographic displays. Species after species showed progress, expansion, technological advancement. The Varani Empire had conquered 12 new systems this cycle. The Vishan Collective had established 43 new trade routes. The Keth Dominion had achieved another breakthrough in quantum mechanics. Then came Earth's entry, single line of text that hadn't changed in decades. No significant development detected. Species remains confined to origin system. Technology. Level, primitive chemical propulsion. Threat assessment, negligible. Council member Vorthok clicked his mandibles in mild amusement. The humans still haven't figured out faster-than-light travel. How quaint. His colleague, a floating jellyfish-like being named Quillix, rippled her translucent skin. Perhaps we should offer them guidance. It seems cruel to let them struggle so. The Prime Directive forbids interference until they achieve interstellar capability, Vorthok reminded her. Besides, what's the rush? We'll get there eventually. Or they won't. Either way, they're hardly a priority. 8,000 light-years away, Dr. Marcus Webb would have found their conversation fascinating. As he stood in the observation deck of Facility 7, buried 3 miles beneath the Mojave Desert, he watched the final preparations for humanity's most ambitious mission yet. The hangar stretched for miles in every direction. Carved from solid rock and lined with energy dampeners that made it invisible to any scanning technology known to galactic science. Inside this hidden cathedral of human engineering, the starship's Silent Dawn hung suspended in its launch cradle like a sleeping predator to alien eyes. The ship would have seemed impossible. Its hull appeared to bend light around itself, creating a surface that was neither fully visible nor completely transparent. The engines produced no heat signature, no electromagnetic radiation, no gravitational disturbance. Every system had been designed with one goal in mind: complete invisibility. Final systems check complete, Doctor reported Commander Lisa Torres, the ship's captain. At 35, she was one of the youngest Starship commanders in human history. But then again, human history of Starship Command was less than 50 years old. We're ready for departure. Webb nodded, his weathered face reflecting decades of secrets, remember, Lisa? This is purely reconnaissance. Get in, observe the Varani border worlds, record everything and get out. No contact, no risks, no heroics. Understood, sir. Torres paused at the airlock. Doctor, do you ever wonder what would happen if they knew? If the galaxy discovered what we've really been doing all this time? Webb's smile was grim. Every day, Commander, every day. The Silent Dawn launched without fanfare, sliding through hidden tunnels that emerged in an abandoned mineshaft in Nevada. To any observer, nothing had happened. No energy spike, no launch signature, no disturbance in the Earth's magnetic field. The ship simply existed in space, as if it had always been there. Within minutes, it was gone, folding space around itself. In ways that would have made Keth scientists weep with envy. The secret had begun 97 years earlier, when a small alien probe had crashed in the Canadian wilderness. The world governments had managed to keep it quiet. But the technology recovered from that single damaged scout ship had changed everything. Not just the obvious things like faster-than-light travel and energy weapons, but the subtle things. New materials that were stronger than neutron star matter. Computer systems that thought in quantum superposition. Most importantly, the aliens' own surveillance records, which showed humanity exactly how primitive the galaxy thought they were. The decision had been unanimous across all nations. Let them keep thinking it. While the galaxy watched Earth through their long-range sensors and saw chemical rockets and radio telescopes, humanity built something else entirely. Deep underground facilities on every continent, connected by quantum tunnels that allowed instant communication and transportation, shipyards hidden in asteroid mines and underwater caverns, research stations disguised as weather monitoring equipment, and deep-sea exploration platforms. The technology they developed didn't just match alien capabilities, it surpassed them. Human engineers, unbound by the impossible limitations that other species had accepted, found solutions that shouldn't have worked. Quantum stealth systems that bent spacetime itself. Weapons that fired coherent gravity waves. Shields that existed in parallel dimensions, but perhaps most importantly, they learned to think like the galaxy's predators while appearing to be its prey. Commander Torres guided the Silent Dawn through the void between stars, her ship's sensors, drinking in data that human scientists had dreamed of for decades. The Varani Empire's border worlds spread out before her like a three-dimensional map of aggression and expansion. Military shipyards churned out warships in quantities that would have terrified any normal species. Fortress worlds bristled with weapons designed to crack planets. Yet as Torres watched, she saw something the Varani themselves didn't seem to recognize. Their empire was overstretched, their resources depleted by constant warfare with the Vesian Collective. Their newest ships were actually inferior to models from 20 years ago, built with cheaper materials and less sophisticated systems. The great Varani war machine was running on empty. Interesting, she murmured, making notes that would soon be transmitted back to Earth through quantum channels the aliens couldn't detect or intercept. Very interesting indeed. The Silent Dawn spent 3 weeks in Varani space, invisible and undetected, recording military capabilities, economic data, and political intelligence. Torres watched alien admirals plan campaigns against distant enemies, never suspecting that representatives of Earth's primitive species were taking notes from the shadows. When the mission was complete, Torres set course for home, carrying information that would reshape humanity's understanding of galactic politics. The Varani Empire, for all its bluster and apparent strength, was vulnerable. More vulnerable than they knew. Back on Earth, Dr. Webb received Torres's report in his underground office. Surrounded by displays showing the deployment of humanity's secret fleet, 237 ships now, all invisible to alien sensors, all armed with weapons that could turn a Varani dreadnought into cosmic dust. The galaxy still saw humans as primitive creatures playing with chemical rockets. They had no idea that humanity had been preparing for war among the stars. For nearly a century, Webb looked up at the ceiling, imagining the vast cosmos beyond the rock and soil above his head. Somewhere out there, alien councils debated trade routes and territorial disputes, never suspecting that Earth's primitive children were already walking among them. The masquerade wouldn't last forever. Someday, the galaxy would learn the truth about humanity. Webb just hoped that when that day came, Earth would be ready for what followed. He had no way of knowing that day was less than 6 months away. Admiral Korvac stood before the holographic display in his flagship's war room, studying the small yellow star that would solve all of the Varani Empire's problems. Sol was an unremarkable system on the galaxy's outer rim, home to a species so primitive they still used chemical rockets to reach their own moon. "Show me the intelligence report again," he commanded. His scaled hands clasped behind his back. The display shifted, showing Earth as seen through long-range sensors. Cities glowed with electric light, a sure sign of early industrial development. Primitive satellites orbited the planet in predictable patterns. Radio signals leaked from the surface, carrying entertainment broadcasts that revealed a species more concerned with fictional stories than galactic reality. "Perfect," Korvac muttered. "Absolutely perfect." His aide, a young officer named Dex, shifted nervously. "Sir, shouldn't we request a larger fleet? Standard protocol for system conquest requires at least 60 ships. Korvac's laugh was harsh. 60 ships? For these primitives? Dex, they haven't even achieved faster-than-light travel. Their most advanced weapons are nuclear missiles that move slower than our cargo haulers. 40 ships is more than sufficient. Honestly, I could probably conquer them with 10. The truth was, the Varani Empire couldn't spare 60 ships. 3. Decades of war with the Vesian Collective had drained their resources to the breaking point. Military production was down 40%. Food shortages plagued the outer colonies. Half the fleet was engaged in holding operations along contested borders, while the other half was too damaged or obsolete to be effective. but Earth represented salvation. The planet was rich in water, rare minerals, and organic compounds. More importantly, it had a large population that could be put to work in Varani factories and mines. Best of all, no one would object to its conquest. The Galactic Council barely acknowledged humanity's existence, and the other major powers had no interest in defending such a backward species. Sir Dex said, consulting his datapad, "We're receiving the final fleet roster. 28 heavy cruisers, 2 dreadnoughts. And our command ship? Total crew complement of 15,000. Excellent." Korvac activated the fleet communications system. "All ships, this is Admiral Korvac. In 6 hours, we jump to the Sol system. Our mission is simple. Secure the surrender of the human government and establish orbital control. Resistance is expected to be minimal. These are primitives, people. Don't let them make fools of you, but don't waste ammunition on targets that pose no real threat." On Earth, the message was received 12 minutes before the Varani fleet jumped to FTL, deep beneath the Pentagon. President Maria Santos stood in the Crisis Command Center, surrounded by displays that showed the true scope of human military capability. "Confirmed Varani fleet movement," reported General Hayes, his face grim. 30 ships, including 2 dreadnought-class vessels. ETA, 2 Sol system, 18 hours. Santos nodded, her expression calm despite the magnitude of what was about to unfold. "And our response?" "Operation Silent Thunder is ready for immediate activation," Hayes replied. 243 ships standing by at concealment positions throughout the system. Defense platforms online and synchronized. All personnel have been briefed. Dr. Webb entered the command center, carrying a tablet loaded with the final intelligence reports from the Silent Dawn mission. "Madam President, we have detailed analysis of Varana's ship capabilities and fleet composition. The good news is that their technology is actually inferior to what we expected. The bad news is that they're probably planning to demand surrender before attacking. Will they negotiate in good faith?" Santos asked. Webb shook his head. Varani culture doesn't recognize the concept of negotiation with inferior species. They'll demand unconditional surrender, followed by immediate occupation. If we refuse, they'll begin orbital bombardment. Santos turned to face the massive display showing Earth from space. Hundreds of millions of people went about their daily lives unaware that alien warships were racing toward them through the void. Most of humanity didn't even know that extraterrestrial life existed, let alone that Earth had been preparing for interstellar war for nearly a century. "General Hayes, what's the status of Project Lazarus?" "All systems operational, Madam President. We have 47 major defense platforms positioned throughout the system, each one invisible to current Varani sensor technology. Primary weapons are charged and ready, and our fleet deployed and waiting. The aliens will drop out of FTL at the system's edge, expecting to find primitive satellites and chemical rockets. Instead, they'll be surrounded by ships they can't see, armed with weapons they don't understand." Santos closed her eyes for a moment, thinking of the years of preparation that had led to this moment. The secret facilities, the hidden research, the careful deception that had convinced the galaxy that humanity was still crawling in the technological dirt. All of it had been building toward this day. "Send the message to all fleet commanders," she said finally. "Humanity is about to introduce itself to the galaxy. Let's make sure they remember the lesson." 18 hours later, the Varani fleet emerged from hyperspace at the edge of the Sol system. Admiral Korvac stood on his bridge, expecting to see a primitive star system defended by nothing more dangerous than chemical rockets and nuclear warheads. Instead, his sensors detected nothing at all. "Report," he commanded, frowning at the empty tactical display. "Sir, we're not picking up any artificial constructs beyond the inner system," his sensor officer replied. "No defensive satellites, no patrol ships, no warning beacons. They don't even know we're here." Korvac smiled. Even better than he'd hoped. "Open a communications channel to the third planet. Let's get this over with." The message that reached Earth was brief and brutal. "Primitive species of Sol 3, you are hereby claimed by the Varani Empire. Surrender immediately and prepare for occupation or face the consequences of resistance." You have 1 hour to respond. President Santos stood before the cameras in the White House, knowing that her words would be heard not just by the Varani fleet, but by intelligence services throughout the galaxy. The secret was about to end. "Admiral Korvac," she said, her voice steady and clear, "I am Maria Santos, President of the United Earth Government. Your demands are rejected. Earth is a sovereign world, and we will defend ourselves against any aggression. If you choose to attack, you will face the consequences of that decision." On his bridge, Korvac laughed out loud. Brave words from someone whose most advanced weapons are nuclear missiles. "Very well, Primitive. You had your chance." He turned to his weapons officer. "Begin orbital bombardment of their major cities. Maybe watching a few million of their people die will change their minds." But as the Varani ships moved into attack formation, something impossible happened. The empty space around them began to shimmer, and suddenly the alien fleet found itself surrounded by ships that appeared from nowhere. What in the seven hells? Korvac stared at his tactical display in disbelief. Dozens of contacts had appeared. Simultaneously, their energy signatures unlike anything in the Varani databases. Where did they come from? Before anyone could answer, the human fleet opened fire. The first volley of coherent gravity waves struck 3 Varani cruisers simultaneously. The alien ships simply disintegrated, their hulls unable to withstand weapons that twisted space-time itself. Energy beams that phased through Varani shields as if they didn't exist, carved through armor plating like it was paper. In 30 seconds, half the Varani fleet was destroyed or crippled. "Retreat," Korvac screamed. "All ships, retreat to hyperspace. Immediately." But as the surviving Varani vessels tried to engage their FTL drives, they discovered that space itself had been altered around them. The human fleet had deployed FTL inhibitor fields. Using technology that shouldn't have existed, they were trapped in a system they had expected to conquer in minutes. Facing an enemy that had been preparing for this moment for nearly a century, Admiral Korvac looked at the impossible ships surrounding his battered fleet and realized that everything the galaxy thought it knew about humanity was wrong. The Battle of the Kuiper Belt lasted exactly 47 minutes. When it was over, the Varani Empire's invasion fleet was reduced to 7 damaged ships and a handful of escape pods floating in the cold vacuum of space. Captain Lise Rivera stood on the bridge of the human flagship Defiant, watching the tactical display with grim satisfaction. Around her, the invisible forms of 200 human vessels maintained their positions, weapons trained on the surviving alien ships. The battle had been less of a fight and more of a demonstration of how completely the galaxy had underestimated humanity. "Captain," reported her tactical officer, "we're receiving a surrender signal from the Varani flagship." "Admiral Korvac is requesting terms." Rivera nodded. "Put him through." The holographic display flickered to life, showing a scaled reptilian face marked by burns and defeat. Admiral Korvac's proud bearing had been replaced by the hollow look of someone whose entire worldview had just collapsed. "Human Commander," Korvac said, his voice barely controlled, I surrender my fleet. We yield to your superior forces." "I am Captain Rivera of the Earth Defense Force," she replied. "Admiral, you came here to conquer our world? You threatened to kill millions of innocent people? Why should we show you mercy?" Korvac's shoulders sagged. "Because we were fools. We thought. We believed you were primitives. We were wrong. Catastrophically wrong." Rivera studied the alien admiral for a long moment. Throughout the short battle, she had watched Varani ships trying desperately to adapt to human weapons and failing completely. Their tactics were sound, their crews brave, but their technology was generations behind what Earth had developed in secret. "Admiral, you will surrender all surviving personnel to human custody. Your ships will be impounded and studied. In return, you and your people will be treated according to the laws of war. No executions, no torture, no revenge. Do you accept these terms?" "Yes," Korvac said immediately. "We accept." As the Varani survivors were taken into custody, automated distress beacons throughout the wreckage continued broadcasting their final moments. Those signals, carrying impossible sensor readings and tactical data, would reach Varani space in 6 days. When they did, they would send shockwaves throughout the entire galaxy, on Earth. President Santos stood before a joint session of Congress, preparing to address not just the American people, but the entire world. For nearly a century, Earth's governments had maintained the greatest secret in human history. Now, it was time to tell the truth. My fellow citizens, she began, 3 days ago. An alien fleet arrived in our solar system with the intention of conquering Earth, they demanded. Our surrender and threatened to destroy our cities if we refused. Today, I can report that this threat has been eliminated. The chamber erupted in chaos. Congressmen leaped to their feet, shouting questions. The global audience watching on television sat in stunned silence. Most of humanity was learning for the first time that they were not alone in the universe. Santos waited for quiet before continuing. What you don't know is that Earth has been preparing for this moment for nearly 100 years. When a damaged alien probe crashed in Canada in 1928, our governments made a decision to study the technology while keeping our capabilities secret. From the galaxy at large, what we learned changed everything. The screens behind her lit up with images that seemed like science fiction. Vast underground facilities. Sleek spacecraft that bent light around themselves. Weapons that could crack. Moons. The secret infrastructure that had been built beneath the feet of an unknowing world. The aliens who attacked us thought we were primitives, Santos said. They believed we were still using chemical rockets and nuclear weapons. They were wrong. Dead wrong. Meanwhile, 8,000 light-years away, the Galactic Council was in emergency session. The impossible data from the Battle of Sol had reached them through quantum communication networks. And the implications were staggering. Council member Vorthok stared at the tactical readouts with disbelief. This can't be accurate, the humans. Destroyed a Varani battle fleet? Impossible. The data is confirmed by multiple sources, reported Quillex, her jellyfish-like body rippling with agitation. But these readings, Captain, these weapon signatures, don't match any known technology. Energy outputs that should be impossible. Ship movements that violate physics as we understand it. The chamber fell silent as the full implications sank. If the data was accurate, then humanity had somehow developed technology that surpassed every known galactic civilization. The primitive species that couldn't even achieve faster than light travel had built weapons that could destroy Varani dreadnoughts in seconds. How? Whispered another council member. How could they advance so far without us detecting it? Answer came from an unexpected source. Dr. Webb appeared on the chamber's central display, transmitted through quantum channels that the council's best scientists hadn't known were possible. His image was crystal clear despite being broadcast from thousands of light-years away. Honorable members of the Galactic Council, Webb said, his voice calm and professional. I am Dr. Marcus Webb, Director of Earth's Advanced Research Division. I believe you have some questions about recent events. The chamber erupted in voices from dozens of species, all talking at once. Webb waited patiently for order to return. For the past 97 years, he continued, humanity has been developing technology based on principles we learned from a crashed alien probe. During this time, we discovered that the galaxy viewed us as primitives, incapable of threatening anyone. We decided to encourage this misconception while building our true capabilities in secret. Vorthok found his voice first. What are your intentions, human? What does Earth want from the galaxy? Webb's smile was diplomatic but firm. What any species wants, council member. Recognition as equals, the right to exist without interference, and peaceful relations with our neighbors. We have no desire to conquer or destroy, but we will defend ourselves against any aggression. And if someone chooses to test that defense, asked Quillex, then they will learn what the Varani learned, Webb replied. That underestimating humanity is a mistake no one makes twice. As the transmission ended, the council chamber fell into stunned silence. For thousands of years, they had maintained the balance of galactic power through careful diplomacy and measured responses. Now, a species they had barely acknowledged had revealed itself as potentially the most dangerous military force in known space, on the border worlds of the Varani Empire. Admiral Vec received the news of Korvax's defeat with a mixture of disbelief and fear. The humans had not only destroyed an entire battle fleet, they had done it without suffering a single casualty. The tactical data suggested weapons and defenses that were centuries ahead of current Varani technology. But what terrified Vec more than human military capability was the implications of their deception. If they could hide their true nature for nearly a century, what else might they be capable of? How many other primitive species might actually be advanced civilizations in disguise? The galaxy suddenly felt much more dangerous in the deep chambers. Beneath the Mojave Desert, Dr. Webb reviewed the quantum transmission logs from the Galactic Council session. The secret was out now. Within weeks, every major power in the galaxy would know that humanity was no longer the primitive species they could safely ignore. Some would want to trade with Earth, seeking access to human technology. Others would want to study them, to understand how they had advanced so rapidly. Some Webb knew would want to destroy them before they became too powerful to stop. The masquerade was over. The real game was just beginning. Webb looked up at the displays, showing the deployment of humanity's hidden fleet. 243 ships, each one invisible to galactic sensors. Each one armed with weapons that could rewrite the balance of power. It wasn't enough. It would never be enough. Because now that the galaxy knew humanity existed, they would be coming in force. And next time, they wouldn't underestimate Earth's children. The stars had declared war on humanity. It was time to show them what humans did to those who threatened their home. The news of humanity's victory over the Varani fleet spread through the galaxy like wildfire, and with it came fear, greed, and calculation. In the great halls of power across 1,000 worlds, alien leaders studied the impossible data from the Battle of Sol and tried to understand what it meant for their own survival. On the crystal world of Kethera, Prime Minister Zalin paced before a holographic display showing human weapon signatures. The Keth Dominion had always prided itself on technological superiority, but the energy readings from Earth ships defied everything they thought they knew about physics. How did they do it? Zalin muttered, his forearms gesturing at the incomprehensible. Data. These power outputs should require a star's worth of energy. Their ships move faster than light without using hyperspace. It's impossible. His chief scientist, Dr. Nexa, rippled her tentacles in frustration. Prime Minister, we've run the calculations a dozen times. Either the data is fabricated, or the humans have discovered principles of science that we missed entirely.
Yes.
Given the evidence, I'm beginning to believe the latter. What do they want? Zalin asked. Have they made any demands? None. They've simply stated that they wish to exist peacefully but will defend themselves against aggression. No territorial claims, no resource demands, no political ultimatums. It's unusual. On the trade world of the Tia Major, the collective's governing board was having a very different conversation. Where the Keth saw a threat, the Thessians saw opportunity.
Gay.
Think about it, urged Merchant Prince Kolax, his scales shimmering with excitement. The humans have technology that surpasses anything in known space. If we can establish trade relationships with them, we'll have access to innovations that could transform our entire economy. Board Chairman Velks was more cautious. And if they decide we're competition to be eliminated, the Varani thought they were conquering primitives. Now their fleet is space debris. That's exactly why we need to approach them as friends, Kolex insisted. Show them the benefits of cooperation rather than giving them reasons to see us as enemies. But in the war halls of the Varani Empire, the tone was very different. Fleet Admiral Krex stood before the High Command, his scarred face reflecting decades of military service and fresh humiliation. The humans made fools of us, he said bluntly. They destroyed 30 ships without losing a single vessel of their own. But that doesn't mean they're invincible. This means they had better intelligence and prepared better weapons. Advantages can be overcome. High Commander Voss leaned forward. You're suggesting we try again? After what happened to Korvax's fleet? I'm suggesting we learn from Korvax's mistakes, Krex replied. He attacked with 30 ships against an unknown enemy. Next time we bring 300 or 3,000. No matter how advanced their technology, They can't have more than a few dozen ships. We overwhelm them with numbers. The debate that followed would reshape galactic politics. For the first time in centuries, the major powers found themselves facing a common concern. None of them could afford to let humanity become too powerful, but none of them could conquer Earth alone. The solution was unprecedented cooperation. On Earth, Ambassador David Stone stood in the observation lounge of the starship Prometheus. Watching the alien capital of Nexus grow larger through the reinforced windows, the diplomatic vessel was humanity's first official presence in galactic space, and every alien sensor in the system was focused on it. "Nervous?" asked Captain Torres, who had volunteered to command the diplomatic mission after her success with the Silent Dawn. Stone shook, his head excited mostly. "We've been watching them from the shadows for so long. Now we get to meet them face to face." "Just remember," Torres said quietly, "they're scared of us now. Scared people make dangerous decisions." The Prometheus docked at Nexus Station without incident, but Stone could feel the tension in the air. As he walked through corridors filled with representatives from dozens of species, conversations stopped when he passed. Alien eyes followed his every movement. Word of his arrival had preceded him. The address to the Galactic Council was broadcast across thousands of worlds. Stone stood at the central podium, a single human, surrounded by alien delegates who could crush Earth with their combined fleets if they chose to work together. "Honored representatives," he began, "I come before you not as a conqueror or a threat, but as a neighbor. Humanity seeks nothing more than peaceful coexistence with the species of this galaxy. We have no territorial ambitions beyond our own system, no desire to impose our will on others, and no intention of sharing our technology with those who would use it for conquest." The last statement sent ripples of concern through the assembled delegates. Stone had just confirmed their worst fears. Humanity possessed advanced technology and intended to keep it for themselves. However, Stone continued, "We will defend ourselves against any aggression. The fate of the Varani fleet serves as proof of our capability and our resolve. We hope it will also serve as a deterrent against future attacks." When the session ended, Stone found himself surrounded by alien diplomats seeking private meetings. The Thessians offered trade agreements. The Keth requested scientific exchanges. The Varani demanded the return of their prisoners and ships. But behind the diplomatic smiles and formal protocols, Stone could sense something else. Fear was driving them toward a decision that would threaten everything humanity had worked to achieve. The secret meeting took place on a neutral world, far from the prying sensors of galactic intelligence networks. Representatives from every major power gathered in an underground chamber, their species' ancient rivalries temporarily set aside by a common concern. "The question before us is simple," declared the Varani representative. "Do we allow humanity to continue developing in isolation, potentially surpassing all of us, or do we act now while we still can?" "They've shown no aggressive intent," argued the Shin delegate. "Their ambassador spoke only of peace and coexistence. They also destroyed an entire battle fleet without suffering a single casualty," countered the Keth representative. "Happens when they decide peaceful coexistence isn't enough. What happens when they want our worlds, our resources, our subjects?" The debate continued for hours, but the conclusion was inevitable. Fear won over hope. Pragmatism defeated optimism. By a unanimous vote, the secret alliance was formed. Back on Earth, General Hayes received the intelligence reports with grim resignation. Spy satellites and monitoring stations throughout the galaxy were detecting massive fleet movements. Ships were being pulled from border patrols, defensive positions, and exploration duties. Signs were unmistakable. The galaxy's major powers were preparing for war. "How many ships are we looking at?" President Santos asked during the emergency briefing. "Conservative estimate? 3,000 vessels from 12 different species," Hayes replied. "They're calling it a peacekeeping force, but the composition is pure military. Dreadnoughts, carriers, siege platforms. This isn't a police action, it's an invasion fleet." Dr. Webb studied the deployment patterns on the strategic display. They're learning from the Varani's mistakes, instead of a small force expecting easy victory. They're bringing overwhelming numbers. They think quantity will beat our quality. Will it? Santos asked bluntly. Webb was quiet for a long moment. Madam President, we have 243 ships. They bring in 3,000. Even with our technological advantages, those odds are ... challenging. Then we need to even them, Santos said firmly. General Hayes, what's the status of Project Aegis? Hayes smiled grimly. The construction teams are working around the clock. We'll have the new fleet ready in time, but it's going to be close. And Project Prometheus. Dr. Webb's team has made the breakthrough we needed. When the alien fleet arrives, they're going to discover that humanity has one more surprise waiting for them. Santos turned to face the wall-sized display showing Earth from space. Somewhere beyond the edge of the solar system, the largest military force in galactic history was gathering to destroy her world. But Earth's children had been preparing for this moment longer than any alien species realized. The galaxy wanted to see what humanity was truly capable of. Right soon they would get there. Wish the stars had united against Earth. Now they would learn why that had been a mistake. The combined galactic fleet emerged from hyperspace at the edge of the Sol system like a metal storm given form. 3,200 ships from 12 species, representing the largest military force ever assembled in recorded history. Dreadnoughts the size of cities floated alongside carrier vessels that could launch 1,000 fighters each. Siege platforms designed to crack planets hung in space like mechanical moons, their weapons charging for the destruction of Earth. Fleet Commander Thane stood on the bridge of the massive command ship Universal Justice, watching his tactical displays with satisfaction. No force in galactic history had ever faced such overwhelming power. The humans, for all their mysterious technology, could not possibly stand against the united strength of the galaxy's greatest civilizations. Open a channel to the human government, Thane commanded. His voice would carry the authority of every major species in known space. The transmission reached Earth within minutes, broadcast on every frequency, and translated into dozens of human languages. President Santos received it in the Crisis Command Center, surrounded by displays showing the true scope of what humanity faced. People of Earth, Thane's voice echoed through speakers across the planet, you stand accused of possessing weapons and technology that threaten the peace and stability of the galaxy. By unanimous decision of the combined fleet, you are ordered to surrender all advanced technology, submit to permanent galactic oversight, and accept occupation forces on your world. You have 1 hour to comply, or face total annihilation. Santos looked around the command center at the faces of her military leaders. General Hayes stood ready at the tactical station. Dr. Webb monitored readouts from systems the aliens couldn't even detect. Admiral Park commanded the secret fleet that was about to reveal itself to the galaxy. Open a response channel, Santos said calmly. Her image appeared on screens throughout the combined fleet. A single human woman facing the representatives of a dozen alien civilizations. When she spoke, her voice carried the quiet confidence of someone who held cards the other side couldn't see. Commander Thane, I am Maria Santos, President of the United Earth Government. Your demands are rejected. Earth is a sovereign world, and we will not submit to foreign occupation or surrender our right to defend ourselves. If you choose to attack, you will face the consequences of that decision. On his bridge, Thane almost laughed, a small planet against the combined might of the galaxy. Very well, human. You have chosen extinction. All ships assume attack formation to begin orbital bombardment of major population centers. But as the alien fleet moved into position, space itself began to change around them. The first sign was the asteroids. What had appeared to be a normal asteroid belt suddenly came alive with energy signatures as massive weapons platforms revealed themselves. Rocks that had drifted in space for millions of years opened like flowers, exposing directed energy weapons that made Varani ship killers look like toys. What in the void? Thane stared at his sensors in disbelief. The asteroid belt wasn't just hiding human weapons. It was entirely artificial, defensive network disguised as natural objects. But that was only the beginning. The space between the asteroids shimmered. Suddenly the alien fleet found itself surrounded by ships that materialized from nothingness. Not the few hundred vessels they had expected, but over 1,000 human warships, each one invisible to their sensors until the moment they chose to reveal themselves. Impossible, breathed Thane's tactical officer. Where did they all come from? The answer came from Admiral Park, commanding the human fleet from the bridge of the Defiant. All ships, this is Admiral Park. Execute Operation Starfall. Show them what humanity has been building while they thought we were primitives. The human ships opened fire simultaneously. But these weren't the same weapons that had destroyed the Varani fleet. Dr. Webb's teams had spent the months since that battle developing something far more devastating. Coherent gravity waves lanced out from human ships, but instead of simply destroying their targets, they began to tear holes in space-time itself. Artificial wormholes opened throughout the alien formation, and several dreadnoughts simply vanished as localized space-time distortions erased them from existence. "Retreat!" Thane screamed. "All ships retreat to hyperspace immediately." As the alien vessels tried to engage their FTL drives, they discovered that the laws of physics themselves had been weaponized against them. The human fleet wasn't just using FTL inhibitor fields, they were manipulating the fundamental structure of space, creating pockets where faster-than-light travel was physically impossible. The combined fleet was trapped in a star system they had come to conquer, facing an enemy that had turned the battlefield itself into a weapon. The battle that followed wasn't really a battle at all. It was a demonstration of how completely the galaxy had misunderstood what humanity was capable of. Ship after ship fell to weapons that shouldn't have existed. Fleets that had conquered hundreds of worlds found themselves helpless against technology that treated their shields and armor like paper. But the most terrifying moment came when Dr. Webb activated humanity's final surprise. "Project Prometheus is online," he announced from his command center deep beneath the Earth. "Quantum gate network established. We can now project force anywhere in the galaxy instantly." As he spoke, new human ships began appearing throughout the battle zone. But these vessels weren't coming from hidden positions in the Sol system. They were arriving through artificial wormholes that connected Earth to every major star system in the galaxy. In the space of minutes, human forces appeared in orbit around the Keth homeworld, the Ascian trade centers, and the heart of the Varani Empire. It's not to attack, but to deliver a message that was broadcast simultaneously across thousands of worlds. To all species of the galaxy, Santos's voice echoed from every human ship. "This is the final demonstration of Earth's defensive capabilities. We have the technology to project military force instantly to any location in known space. We have weapons that can rewrite the laws of physics in localized areas. We have defensive systems that can turn asteroids into fortresses and empty space into killing fields." The alien fleet commanders watched in horror as the scope of human capabilities became clear. They hadn't just underestimated Earth's military strength. They had failed to understand that humanity had developed technology that made traditional concepts of distance and defense meaningless. However, Santos continued, "We did not develop these capabilities for conquest. We developed them for survival. Earth seeks only to exist in peace, but we will defend ourselves against any threat, no matter how large." Fleet Commander Thane found himself facing a choice that would define the future of galactic civilization. He could continue the attack and watch his combined fleet be systematically destroyed by weapons his species couldn't comprehend. Or he could accept that humanity had just redefined what was possible in galactic warfare. "All ships, stand down," he ordered quietly. "Cease fire and maintain position." The aftermath of the Battle of Sol was swift and decisive. Within hours, representatives from every major galactic power were requesting emergency negotiations. The secret alliance that had brought 3,000 ships to destroy Earth crumbled as each species realized they needed to make peace with humanity before their rivals did. The Sol Accords were signed 3 weeks later on the human space station. New Horizon, which had appeared in orbit around Earth overnight, apparently constructed by the same technology that allowed humans to move ships instantly across the galaxy. The treaty recognized Earth as an equal galactic power with full sovereignty over its territory and the right to defend itself as it saw fit. But in the secret chambers beneath the Mojave Desert, Dr. Webb was already working on humanity's next project. The quantum gate network that had allowed instant deployment of human forces was just the beginning. His teams had detected something that none of the galaxy's other species knew about yet. Signals from other galaxies. Distant civilizations that might be watching the local galaxy with the same mixture of curiosity and contempt that local species had once directed toward Earth. How long until we can reach them? President Santos asked, studying the data from humanity's long-range sensors. The prototypes are already under construction, Webb replied. Intergalactic vessels using principles that would make our current technology look primitive. We should have the first ships ready within the year. Santos nodded, understanding the implications. The galaxy had learned that humanity was not the primitive species they appeared to be. But there were other galaxies out there, other civilizations, that might make the same mistake. Earth's children had introduced themselves to the local galaxy. Soon, it would be time to meet the neighbors. The stars had tried to destroy humanity and failed. Now they would watch as Earth's children walked, among them as equals, carrying secrets that would reshape the universe itself. And in the depths of space, alien sensors detected the first human ships beginning their journey to distant galaxies, carrying with them the message that wherever intelligence arose, wherever civilizations grew and thrived, humanity would be there, not as conquerors, but as the species that had learned the most important lesson in the universe. Never underestimate your neighbors, 'cause someday they might surprise you.